Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's Precious Robbins with Precious Pythons, and I am back with another video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for yet another one. For today's video, I am going to be talking about my ball python feeding schedule, which will include how I feed my grow-ups versus my breeders. So I'll talk about how often I feed, how much, when, and why. So to start off with the basics, I go and get my rats from Cold Blooded Cafe every Friday, and I have like a bulk order of rats. And when I say bulk, I'm talking, 40, 50 rats, so not too many, but I no longer have to do the garbage disposal method, which is feeding a snake multiple meals to get rid of those rats, because I actually adopted a method where I can take care of my rats for however long that I need to without, them dying, which is watering them and feeding them and just making sure they're content. I made a video demonstrating how I do this, so if you're interested in that, you can check that out at the link above. But because of that, I no longer have to double up or like feed a snake that I know takes multiple meals or is a little bit more of an aggressive eater than others. And honestly, I like it that way, because sometimes when you do that, sometimes particular snakes will go off of food when they're full, which is understandable. Now, based on the age of the snakes that I have in my collection, some snakes might get more meals throughout the week than others. For example, my hatchlings and juveniles, anything under 400 grams, will eat every 3 to 4 days. That's typically because smaller snakes grow at a more rapid pace. They have a higher metabolism than adult snakes, so you can feed them more often. However, obviously, when feeding my smaller snakes, even though they're getting fed more often, they're still getting that appropriate sized meal. When it comes to mice, anything that comes right out of an egg, a hatchling, or up to a juvenile will get a pretty large adult mouse. Now, an adult mouse, depending on the size, medium to adult, can be about the size of a rat pup. So they're pretty small, which is why if I'm feeding mice, I'll feed the equivalent of the size of a rat pup, because with my hatchlings, instead of offering them like a rat fuzzy or anything like that, which is very small, I go ahead and offer a rat pup right off the bat, and they have no issues eating that size and taking it down, and seem to grow pretty well with that. I know some people offer fuzzies or hoppers right when they come up out the gate, out the egg, but I just don't do that. It just seems very unnecessary to feed a meal that small, unless the snake is like super tiny, maybe the runt of the clutch or something like that. But in a normal circumstance, when feeding mice, I feed small adults. Rats, I feed pups. And if I'm feeding an ASF to a hatchling, which I've never done, but if I were to, I would probably go with adult small as well, because they're very, very tiny. ASFs are very, very tiny when they're first born. So for my sub-adult males, I offer them one small rat every week. And a subadult will typically be between 500 and 800 grams until they reach adulthood or sexual maturity. But they don't need anything bigger than a small rat. And you can offer once a week. And they'll have this meal and this size schedule for the rest of their lives. There's no reason to give them any more or any bigger unless they're breeding. My female subadults are a completely different story. However, I do also start them on smalls, but once they reach about 1,000 grams, and understand that, before I get into that, understand that males and females grow very differently. So an 800 gram male that's a year old is an adult. However, a 800,000 gram female is not adult, still a subadult, and it will probably stay a subadult until around 1,300 grams or so, and 2 years. So when I have a subadult female, I'll start them off on smalls. But once they reach about 1,000 grams, I start offering mediums. And that's if I have no issues with them approaching that 1,000 gram wall that sometimes takes them off of food. But if they are showing really, really great signs, aggressive, eager signs of eating, I'll start introducing that medium rat until they get to breeding size. And then I start pairing, And then once they go off of food, I don't offer any more meals. The reason why I don't offer my females meals when they go off of food, when breeding, is because they typically do tend to stop eating or go off of food. So in order to not stress them out or interrupt their internal process of building follicles and ovulation, I'll stop offering, especially if they're at a healthy weight, which you shouldn't be pairing them unless they are at a healthy weight and ready to breed. During my first year in attempt at breeding, which was last year, I actually halted the breeding process of a female by stopping the pairing of her to another male because she went off of food. And that was a huge mistake because, again, they go off of food when they're breeding. It might not happen right away, but it happens eventually. And I made the mistake of thinking that it was a problem that she went off of food, and I stopped pairing her, and she didn't lay eggs for me that year. I obviously switched up my method. If a female goes off of food, that's a very good sign. Continue to pair them. But again, I don't offer any more meals once I see that there's a continuous pattern of being off of food. Once a female gets up to breeding weight, I will start offering meals every 3 to 4 days. And when I say breeding weight, I'm talking 1,600, 1,700 grams, sometimes 1,500, depending on the structure and the body build of the actual snake itself. I'll start offering meals every 3 to 4 days, like I said. They won't be mediums every time. If I'm offering every 3 to 4 days, I will do smalls once they get to that proper weight to start pairing and to start breeding. I also do that same type of feeding schedule for my breeding females once they've laid their eggs. So once they've laid their eggs, I wait about a week to offer them their first meal after laying. And then from there, I give them meals every 3 to 4 days until they're back up to weight. When a female first lays her eggs, her stomach looks concave. It's shocking. I know the very first time I saw it, it's extremely shocking. It just doesn't look like a healthy state of being at all. So to get them back to their normal body structure, I'll offer more frequent meals. Actually, I'm going to take out some girls that just laid. And when I say just laid, the 2 girls I'll show is one that laid in April and another that laid the beginning of this month, and show you what they look like now after getting them back on food. Now, I've showed this girl many times. This is my Fire Pied Fiamma. And again, she just laid in April. And just look how big and thick she is. Obviously, she's had a lot of time to get back on food. She was back on food immediately. No issues whatsoever. And is still eating now. But yeah, so she just laid, she got back on food, her body structure is back up to normal. She weighs so much more than she did last year when I started pairing her. Right now, I believe she's at around 2,500 grams. And last year, when I started pairing her, she was at 15. She has a very, very thick body, and it's a great breeder. This is another female that laid for me, and that's the female that laid the beginning of October, which is this month. She's in shed right now, unfortunately, but I won't keep her out too long. But again, this is another female that just got back on food amazingly. Obviously, she's a little smaller than the girl that I just showed, but she's been eating great. I feed her every 3 days, 3 or 4 days. But now that she's this size, she's now just getting 1 meal a week. And that's the same for the girl that I just showed. So once they get back on food, once they've surpassed their prior weight that they were breeding at the previous year, there's no need to feed them every 3 to 4 days. I go ahead and switch back to once every 7 days until I start seeing follicular growth again. And, I might switch up the schedule and feed them every 3 to 4 days. Now, the reason why I do that 3 to 4 day schedule for my breeding females that are showing follicular growth is because I was told by a very reputable breeder that by breeding every 3 to 4 days, once they're in that stage of building follicles and being paired and approaching, ovulation, that extra feedings can stimulate ovulation. So I adopted that method and kind of testing it out this year, and hopefully it works. I know I did it with a few snakes last season, and it actually worked really well. Anytime that I take a male out of the tub who's finished locking with the female, I put him back in his tub and I offer them a meal, regardless of when was the last time I fed. Every time they're separated from being locked, I offer a meal. I don't offer the meal the very same day. In my experience, I found that both the male and the female won't eat immediately after. I always wait about a day. And then, or at least that night. But I give it some time, let them get settled back into their enclosure, and I offer that whatever rodent I'm putting in at the time. Now, even though it's a really good sign for a female to go off of food when she's breeding, it is not so much a good sign for males. It absolutely does happen, but like I said, it's not necessarily a good thing. It's just kind of like normal, natural behavior. But you want to heavily monitor that male. You don't want them to be off of food the entire time. It's normal for them to skip a few meals, but if they go off of food for like a consistent 2 months, I would stop pairing that male immediately. Honestly, I wouldn't even wait the 2 months. I do a month, 4 meals. If they miss 4 meals, I stop pairing them. To me, getting a clutch of eggs is not worth the death of one of my snakes. So, and they can die. It's actually very common for a breeding male to be paired to so many snakes, females, not eat, and then just croak, you know? And that's what absolutely I'm trying to avoid. So I might do it a little earlier than most, but you know, I have a smaller collection, and I really care about my animals. Not to say that anybody else doesn't, but I'm trying to prevent that. That's my first priority. So that's it for today, guys. Just a little bit of some information on how I feed all of my snakes. I hope that it was helpful for anybody that is either new to breeding, new to keeping, curious. I do want to say that if you have a pet ball python, whether it be a male or female, you don't need to offer them any more food than once a week. One appropriate sized meal every single week. That's it. You could probably do it a little more for the hatchlings. You could do every 3 to 5 days. But once they get to adults, sub-adult size, 1 meal a week. That's it. You don't want an overweight snake. Snakes can have health issues associated with being overweight. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below. Tell me how you feed your snakes. What's your feeding schedule like? Is it similar to mine? Is it a little different? If you have questions, feel free to ask. If you have tips and you want to give me any type of advice, feel free. I'm all ears. You know, I'm new to this, just as new as the next person, and I'm learning every day. A hobby like this, the learning never stops. You know, obviously you have your experts, you have people who know exactly what they're doing, but I think even those people have things to learn still. Before you go, make sure you subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell, look for more content from me. I will be uploading weekly. I am trying to do better, so hopefully I can achieve this once a week, every Wednesday at noon, uploading my videos. So stay tuned for more. Thanks again, guys, and have a great day.